What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. I hope you're all keeping well. Now in this video I'm going to be making a random pattern / chaotic pattern cutting board. This one is for my wife. She really likes the random chaotic pattern ones, so I've made her one and it turned out absolutely beautiful. So that's what I'm doing in this video, complete with a catastrophe, kind of 3/4 of the way through the build, which I have to recover from, and I had to add a bit of resin to this board, so I'll show you that as well. And I also planed end grain, passed it through my thicknesser. I've made a little jig so that I didn't get any tear out, so you'll see that in this video as well. So hopefully you'll enjoy it, guys. If you do enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. So let's get on, make this beautiful random / chaotic pattern cutting board. Okay guys, let's crack on with this project. Now this is what I'm going to be using. I have various offcuts that I have left over from different projects, so we're going to try and use those up. And I also have this bundle of timber here. So this is one of those bundles that you buy online. It's just offcuts, various different places selling. You can actually get them on eBay and stuff like that. People just sending boxes of offcuts. I got this from Strahan Timber, so my Irish viewers are always asking me, where do I get my hardwood? I just took a punt. I wanted to see what one of these bundles would look like. So this was a €30 bundle. It contains various different timbers. There's maple, oak, sapele, walnut, just different size offcuts. It's okay for, I suppose, small projects. So when you guys are into your hand tool woodworking and you're looking to get yourself a bit of hardwood, then sometimes you can get a decent enough bundle. This one's not particularly good, I have to say, but I just wanted to take a punt, see what it was like, and so this is what you can expect. I'll give you a quick close-up as I'm talking on what these bundles are actually like, but there you go. We're going to use this to make this chaos style pattern. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do, take this stuff to the planer or to the jointer. I want to get a nice flat face and a 90-degree side, and then we can run these through the table saw. So lots of cutting, lots of gluing. Let's get on and do it. Okay guys, I have everything planed up. So I've planed face, a 90-degree edge, and the opposite face, which is perfectly parallel. And then I'm going to run the edge against my fence. I didn't plane the opposite edge because that would be a waste piece anyway. So I've set my fence to 40mm, so around about 1.5 inches. I'm going to rip everything down to 1.5 inches now. I have various thicknesses, so that will add to the chaotic effect, but everything will be 40mm in width, so we can stack everything against each other, even though the thicknesses are different, if you get what I'm saying. So that's my next thing, rip everything down now to 40mm on the table saw. Let's do that. Okay guys, there's all my pieces ripped down to 40mm, so they're all the exact same thickness now, but they're all different widths. So it's just a case of arrange this out now into a pattern I think is going to look good, and then we can glue it up and we can begin chopping it up, re-gluing and chopping and re-gluing. That's what chaos boards basically are. So I might get 2 boards out of what I have here. The only piece that's concerning me now is this sharp bit of maple. I wanted to get some more white kind of wood into it. I have some ash here, but ash is not as nice and white as the maple. But see, if I glue this in place, I would lose this section. So I suppose I could always come back and glue a piece in down there. I have to arrange this now. So I'm just going to start arranging this up, getting it laid out, see what way I want to have it. I might have enough to do 2 boards here, but let's just get a nice little pattern into it. So I'll get on and do that. And when I have a decision made, we'll jump back in and glue it up. Okay guys, this is what I've decided to go with. Here's my pattern. So sapele, walnut, ash, oak, sapele. I have, I think, some poplar in there, some cherry, and the rest is just ash, oak, sapele, and walnut. And we have maple. So what I've done here with the maple is I've just cut this block. It's going to be a chaotic pattern. So if I put the 2 of these together and glue them, you're not even going to see that line. It's going to be within the chaotic pattern itself. So that's how I'm going to do the glue up. Now, with these chaotic style chopping boards, it's up to you how many times you want to cut them, re-glue them and recut them. I think I'm just going to do it twice. So I'm going to do the initial glue up like this. Then I'll slice it into my pieces, turn everything up, mix it all up, and then I'm going to cut it diagonally and then do the exact same thing again. So I'm going to just do the straight across cut and the diagonal cut. It'll all make sense now as I'm doing it. But like I said, you can make these as chaotic and as crazy as you want by keep doing multiple cuts and keep gluing. If you're going to do that, remember, you're going to lose the curve of the blade from every cut every single time you do this, so your board is going to start to get shorter and shorter. So make sure you leave plenty of waste to allow for the multiple cuts if you really want to get crazy with your pattern. But I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to do 2 cuts because I'm kind of happy with the dimensions of this board, so I don't mind losing a little bit in the way. I have a bit to play with, so that's what we're going to do. So let's just get this glued up, and when it's glued up we can start cutting. Now before we continue on with this lovely cutting board, I just want to very quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Souther Shop. Now Souther Shop for the last 20 years have been one of Europe's biggest online providers of high-end woodworking equipment. They even do their own brand name precision made stuff such as router lifts, fences, clamps and so much more. There's over 18,000 products on the site, including from Mafel, Woodpecker and Festool. So I highly recommend you guys go check them out. You've seen me use multiple of their products on my channel, so I can highly recommend them, and they've given me, just for Man and Shed subscribers, a promo code for 15% off these parallel or body clamps. They are absolutely fantastic, and you see me use them gluing up this cutting board in this video. So definitely go check them out, guys. The link will be in the description below. Get yourself some body clamps, 15% off, Man and Shed, just for Man and Shed subscribers. So thank you to Souther Shop for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the cutting board. Right guys, ready for the glue up. I have my parallel jaw clamps all set up. I have a couple of clamping coils masked off, ready to go, so I can clamp them on top to try and keep this as flat as possible. Problem is, I do not have a drum sander, so I'm going to have a lot of sanding by hand when I flip this over, and it's going to be an engrain board, so it's going to be difficult and a bit laborious, but it is what it is. So it's just a case of glue this up. I'm going to crack on and do it. I'm not going to do any talking through it because gluing up, you have to be kind of quick. So I'll get on and do it, and when it's all glued up, we'll jump back in. Oh, by the way, I'm using Titebond 3 because it's waterproof and it's food safe. And I've never had this wood glue fail on a guitar or on a chopping board. So it's well tested, I know it works, so Titebond 3. Right guys, there we go, all glued up. So everything is in place, clamping coils are on, it's as flat as I can get it. I'm going to have to do a little bit of hand planing on this just to get it perfectly flat again. Like I say, I don't have a drum sander, so it's going to have to be a bit of elbow grease on this one. So yeah, just leave that for a few hours now, and then I can start slicing it up, re-gluing it and getting it back together. Now I even managed to cut my finger, and no project is complete unless you cut your finger. Someday I will get through a project without cutting myself, but today is not that day, unfortunately. So I'll leave that for a few hours now and we'll jump back in. Okay guys, it is the following morning. I left this glue set up overnight. It's quite cold this time of year when it's the winter time now, it's November, so it takes the glue that bit longer to go off, so I left it overnight, so it's all nice and glued up now. So now the next dilemma I have is I need to flatten both sides of this to get jointable edges, so when I slice this back up, turn everything on edge and glue it back together, I need good joints. Now it's a kind of a big board. You could do this with a hand plane, however it's a lot of work. A drum sander, like I said already, is the ideal thing. So if you're thinking about making a lot of cutting boards, maybe a drum sander would be a good investment. But what I'm going to try and do is try and pass this over the planer. So I'm going to slice it up first, and then I'm going to put the pieces through the planer to try and get them nice and flat. Now I'm going to be playing across the grain, not along the long grain, so that's going to be dangerous. I could get breakout on the edges, so I'm going to have to make a little jig in order to stop that from happening. So first thing I'm going to do anyway is get this all sliced up. We'll get it into smaller chunks, and then we'll start passing them over the planer and the jointer, and we'll see how we get on. Let's do it. Right, so I'm going to use my crosscut sled to slice this up. And the nice thing about building yourself a nice big crosscut sled is you can do nice big projects on it. So all you guys who said I made this too big, you can see why I did now. So I have a nice and clamped down. I'm going to put a truing cut on this, and then I'm going to cut 50mm sections or 2-inch sections. That's a good thickness for a cutting board. It allows you to put a chamfer or 2 round over on the corner. You know, 2 inches is a good thickness. So let's get on and dice this up. Okay guys, there we go, all sliced up into 50mm sections, and the 50mm worked out perfect as I only had a small bit of waste on this piece here, which is absolutely perfect. And the piece where I joined the maple, now you can see, because we've turned it up onto the end grain, we will not see that joint, so we can hide that piece. Where is it? There it is there. So you can see the joint in it there. That's not going to be seen now. We can hide that within the board itself. So all in all, happy days. Now, I've kind of got some big gaps in between all these pieces, like I said, so I've got to get jointable faces on both sides of this now. So I'm going to run this over the planer, and like I said, you're planing across short grain, you're going across the sideways across the grain, so you can break off the corners. You have to be very, very careful. It's not ideal, but I'm going to make a little jig either side of this to pass it through the planer. So we'll go over the jointer first, or the planer first, and I'll pass it through the thicknesser. Depends wherever you are in the world, I suppose, whatever you want to call it. So let's do that next. Okay guys, there is the results. We've a lovely jointable edge there, razor sharp blades in the planer. I'm taking less than 0.5 millimeter each time for the pass, so I'm relatively safe. So that's good and perfectly square as well, which is happy days. So I have a nice finish, a nice jointable edge on that. So I want to get another jointable face on this side. So we're going to put this in a little jig now and pass this through the thicknesser or the planer, again, whatever you want to call it. So I get all these done, and when we're set up in the jig, I'll give you guys a look at that, and then we get this glued up again. Okay guys, so there we go. I have one side all planed up now, so happy days, no drama, everything worked out quite well. So I'm going to pass this through the thicknesser now to do the other side. So I've just made a little jig here. So I've taken the two off-cut pieces, or the waste that I had from when I cut this up. I've screwed them to a piece of MDF. I'm just going to use that then as a protection block either end to put in my pieces. It's nice and tight, it clamps them in place, push that down, and now my end grain or my side grain is protected both ends, so it's supported here. So I'm just going to pass it all through the planer just like this. Okay guys, there we go. All nice jointable edges on both sides. That jig worked out absolutely fantastic. It done the job. It also prevents snipe as well. So if you're ever planing long boards and you're worried about getting snipe on the end of them, build yourself a jig like this. Have two pieces either end to the thickness that you want to plane your board to, and that will help prevent snipe as well as any breakout. So great little jig, nice and handy, and saves me, I suppose, using a drum sander or hand planing. It makes it 10 times quicker. Now, we have to get ready for our next glue up. But here, have a look at this. One of these pieces actually came apart. So the glue actually failed on one section here, which is a little bit perturbing. But yeah, I've never had Tight Bond 3 come apart before. And I put a lot of glue on these and left them for about 16 hours in the clamps. And one of them came apart. So we're going to have to address that, but that's not a big deal. It's just re-glue it again. So next thing we want to do is just kind of flip every second one of these around. We want to start to create our kind of chaos pattern now. So I'm just going to, you could leave it the way it just was and have yourself a nice end grain straight lined cutting board, but we're making the chaos pattern one, so we want to start to break everything up. Now we're also going to cut our next cuts at an angle, so I'm actually going to glue this up. If I take my ruler and just, you know, pick an angle, just offset it slightly. I don't want to lose too much material, so when I'm putting my cuts through it, I'm going to take off about that, so it'll be all straight line cuts at that angle. So I cut with the track saw, then I'll have something that I can run against my fence of my table saw, or I can do it all with the track saw, whatever. So the next cuts through are all going to be at an angle, so we're going to glue it up just like that. Now we start to lose some of the dimension of this board. It's going to get smaller and smaller, but this is going to be my final cut, so it's going to glue together like this. We're going to cut it at an angle, which creates more of a chaos pattern. We're going to re-glue it, and then we're going to square it up, and that's going to be our final design. So let's get this glued up. Okay guys, that is now glued up, so you can see the kind of angle that it's off there now, so it's ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is take a slice off the edge of this with my track saw, along that angle there. So it's going to just, you can pick whatever angle you want. I'm just trying to conserve as much material as I can. So I'm going to take a straight edge along here. I'm going to use that and to run that against the fence of my table saw to slice this back up again. So let's get this first edge established now with the track saw. Okay guys, so now that I have a nice straight square edge established with a track saw, I'm going to run that against my fence and cut this into 50mm strips again at this angle, and then we'll re-glue it, and that we should be nearly there with the cutting and gluing, fingers crossed. Okay guys, there we go, all sliced up again now, but we're angled through the block pattern. So we've got some nice jointable edges off the table saw, which is great, so we don't have to do any tidying up on this. Now it's just a case of rearrange these so we can try and flip them around in different directions just to see what kind of patterns we can get. And like I say, just turn this on its head different ways, and then you get that chaos pattern. Again, you can glue this up just like this, something to that effect, and you can cut this again as many times as you want. It's really up to you. Again, just remember, you lose material every time you cut it, so you can run diagonally through this again and make it even more chaotic. We just try and mix these up as best we can. So what we don't want is a repeating pattern. So I'll get on and get this all set up, and when I'm happy with it, I'll glue it up and I'll show you. Okay guys, so that's kind of the orientation I'm going to go with, so you can see how chaotic it's looking now. You could go, like I said, diagonally through this again, but you're going to lose some material. What I could do on my next cut, if I wanted, so I won't lose any more material, just really the curve for the blade, is I can do straight cuts through this. So I could run a straight line down this and then just run this through the table saw again along the fence, or actually take it back to the crosscut sled and slice this up again. We'll see. I'm going to glue it up like this, clamp it all up now, get it glued together, and see if I feel like I need to make it a little bit more crazy, because we're still kind of blocky in the middle. I can run straight cuts through all these now, break up these larger blocks, and then mix them all around again, and I only lose the curve of the blade. So it would probably be 4 or 5 cuts, so you'll be losing about 15 to 20mm off this. But yeah, we're nearly there now. We'll glue this up and then we can make that decision. Okay guys, it is a few days later and I'm back at the cutting board. So let's give you guys a quick look at what it looks like now. So I decided to go and do one more set of cuts and glue up. So I took it to the table saw, a crosscut sled, and put a few square cuts through it, rearranged the blocks again, and went to glue it back up. Now before I glued it back up this time, because I had glued it up so many times before, it started to get a little bit uneven and out of whack. So I've actually passed it over the planer and through the thicknesser. Now, obviously I was planing end grain at this stage. It's unbelievably risky to do so because you can get so much breakout, but passing it over the top of the planer didn't actually cause any issues. And then I put it into that jig that I used, you guys have seen me use already in this video, to plane it, and that did a perfect job. So it thicknessed everything down to the correct thickness, and then I set it up on top of the planer to glue it up. So I had a really flat reference surface, then I put the parallel jaw clamps on and clamped it up, and now it is lovely and flat again. So that was the process I used, and this is where I'm at. My wife now is really happy with the pattern. She wants it to leave it like that, so that's where we're going to stop. And like I said, if you want to keep cutting this up, just make sure you oversize your board, because you are losing a little bit of material every time you chop it up. But this is exactly where I want to be now, so I'm pretty happy with this. So the next thing I want to do is just do some finishing details on this. So I'm actually going to put a bevel cut all around the bottom of this now, rather than route in a little handhold. I'm going to put a nice 45-degree bevel cut on this and then hit it with a round over. Then we've lots and lots of sanding to do. So let's get the bevel cut into this and get this all finished up. Right guys, there we go. Nice round over edge on it and a nice bevel cut there, as you can see. So the bevel cut also acts as a way of being able to pick it up so you don't have to route in any handholds. And the nice thing about the bevel cut is you're cutting through this kind of chaotic pattern, so it just highlights that pattern a little bit more and it looks like a nice detail, and it takes the kind of bulky look off the board as well when you're looking at it from the edge. It just kind of tricks the eye and makes it not look as thick, even though it is still nearly 2 inches in thickness. So it's a nice kind of heavy butcher's block end grain cutting board. Now, I've lots of sanding to do on this, so I'm going to get on. I won't bore you guys with that. I'll sand this up to about 120 grit, and then when it's time to get the finish on, I'll get you guys back in for a look. Right guys, I'm a good hour into sanding, and I've made a catastrophic error on the glue up, which I want to share with you guys now, because I always share my mistakes. It's going to just mean that I'm going to have a good few more hours sanding in order to fix this. So you can see on the lighter wood here, you can see the staining, so it looks absolutely terrible. Now the underside doesn't have it, but it has a few checks in it. That's why I wanted to keep this as the underside. So when I was gluing this up, when I was turning it on end, facing the end grain up, I made a catastrophic error in wetting a cloth and trying to wipe off the excess glue. Never ever do that when you're getting excess glue over end grain. Always let it dry and scrape it off, because when you get a wet cloth to wipe off glue, you force it into the end grain, it soaks into the end grain, then you have that glue stain in the end grain, and it goes deep because end grain is essentially like a load of straws facing up. So I'm trying to get down to it now. In some areas I'm kind of getting to the end of it. I'm not sure how deep these areas go, but I'm just using some clean spirits that will evaporate off. So you can see how nice the top is actually going to look. But you can see now what's going to happen if I try and put a finish on that. Look at that, that is just horrible. So hopefully I can put this right. There's a quick glimpse of what the board is actually going to look like. It's going to look absolutely fantastic, apart from this absolute disaster that I have here. I have no idea how deep this goes. So I'm hoping, maybe another hour of sanding that I get this out. This is where a drum sander would be ideal. I don't want to take this to the planer. I've tried a coward scraper, I've tried a hand plane on it just to try and get down through the end grain a bit quicker. But I think I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm starting to remove it. So fingers crossed I get to remove this, but that's just a mistake, just a warning for you guys. Never wipe off glue with a wet cloth over end grain, or you will end up with a disaster like this. Okay guys, I'm going to have to do something fairly dramatic here. I just took a chisel to see how far down this stuff actually goes. It goes quite a bit. It's down about 3, 4, 5 mil in some places. So I would have to cut the whole top to fix this. I'm not going to do that. So I've just taken a router and I've routed out one of the sections. So I'm going to clean up the edges with a chisel. So I'm going to do that to all the ones like this one here that have the stain in them. I'm going to have to route them all out and cut new pieces, glue them in, and then sand it. And hopefully that should sort it. I can't justify, after putting all this work into it now, put a stain over that and been able to see that. It just, you couldn't look at it. It would ruin the whole piece. So I'm going to route them out, cut it with the chisel, make new pieces, glue them back in, and sand it. So let's get on and do that, and hopefully no more mistakes. Okay guys, so I've cleaned out all the offending articles, and rather than cut pieces in, what I'm actually going to do is put in a little bit of resin. So I have a little bit of resin left over from my coffee table build, and I just mixed in some nice copper flake in there with a little bit of gold pigment, kind of similar to what I've done on my coffee table build. So I'm going to just put this in and fill up those little blocks. Just going to add an extra nice little detail to this cutting board, and hopefully if this works out, it will be a happy mistake on my part. So that's good and mixed up there. Now I've just give it a quick heat up with the heat gun, just to get it nice and runny. And I'm just going to syringe this in. Let's take a little syringe and just fill up each of these squares, or sections I should say. They're all different shapes. And not do that. So squirting it all over the place like that was not something I wanted to do. I might have just caused the exact same problem again now, but hopefully not. Right, there we go. All the little areas are now filled and it has a lovely kind of copper fleck in it with a little bit of gold. It's kind of hard for the camera to pick it up. Now, hopefully this doesn't turn out to be another catastrophe because I will tear my hair out. But that was just careless of me. I just left it drip off the syringe and it shouldn't go in as far as the glue, I hope. And that'll just sand off. My experience with resin, it tends to just sand off. So hopefully, like I said, I haven't just recreated a problem I've just tried to solve. But yeah, that's going to be a nice, lovely detail added to this board now. Hopefully it works out well. And when this is all dry, I'll get back to you. Right guys, we are all sanded up, ready for finishing. So the resin worked out quite nicely. So I've sanded it up to 240 grit now. Now that resin took 2 days to cure. This has taken me about 2 weeks in total to build. It's always the same when I'm trying to get a video made. Everything goes wrong, but yeah, it took 2 days to cure. I've sanded it all up to 240 grit, so it is all looking very nice indeed. So let's get the finish on it. Okay guys, so for the finish I'm just going to use this food safe finish from Chestnut. That's what I've used on all my cutting boards to date and it works out quite nicely indeed. So here we go, this is the money shot as they say. It's always great to see the finish go on and watch the grain pop and these boards kind of come alive. Oh, there we go. Very nice indeed. You can see the kind of fleck now coming out and the sparkle in the resin, which is quite nice. Nice little detail. It doesn't stand out too much. You wouldn't know there was resin there until you actually go look and inspect it a bit closer. So it's kind of subtle and hidden. But yeah, you can see how that's turned out now. Quite nice indeed. Bit of a shine on it there with the camera. Just give you guys a look. There you go. Right, I'm going to crack on and get multiple coats of finish on this now. And when it's all dried up and I've got several coats on, I'll jump back in. I'll give you guys a look at the finished product. There we go. Very nice. Okay guys, so there we go. The random / chaotic pattern cutting board is now all finished. Really happy with how that has turned out. I'll roll in some close-ups as I'm speaking. So it all worked out well in the end, including the resin inlays. Turned out quite nice. So that's a good little save, a good little fix there. So yeah, just be very careful about using a wet cloth and rubbing your glue into the end grain. It does stain and you can't get it back out again. So catastrophe averted. So hopefully you've enjoyed that one, guys. Hopefully you've got something from it. Hopefully it inspires you guys to go into your sheds, workshops or anywhere that you can make something and get out and start making some stuff. So yeah, that's it guys. If you've enjoyed the video, as always, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, think about subscribing. Comments, questions below. Anything you want to ask, I try to answer as many questions as I possibly can in the comment section. So that's it guys. Until the next project, I'm going to get out of here. Look after yourselves as always. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.